Hi, I'm Scott, and welcome to Renaissance Spirit. More than just a philosophy or a style, but a solve for living, growing, learning, and thinking. In today's video, we're going to discuss how to nurture the Renaissance Spirit. And I'm going to go and give you some steps that'll help you on your journey. To embrace the Renaissance Spirit, one needs to embrace a polymath lifestyle. So in today's video, we're going to discuss steps that'll help you on that journey. This video is going to encompass 7 different steps. They're not necessarily in any particular order, but they're all essential for people to go and live life with purpose, with meaning, and also to engage ourselves into that framework of being a polymath. Now, to get into definitions, a polymath is a person who is a subject matter expert on a wide variety of different unrelated or seemingly unrelated topics. Probably the best example of a polymath is Leonardo da Vinci. He was a mathematician, an artist, an architect, an inventor. He knew a lot about different subjects. And the reason that this is important, why being a polymath or a Renaissance spirit is important, is because life isn't in a vacuum. If you've ever went to school, you've probably heard the saying, all other things being equal, in some statement. But all things aren't equal, and there are so many myriad of factors and variables in life, and everything is related to some degree or another. At least everything on Earth, including us. We're 99.9% the same. We're related to every species on this Earth. Everything is related in that sense. So it's important to realize that architecture is related to culture and society in general, and it's related to art, amongst other things, just as one example. So the more we can go and learn about different topics and how the thread seamlessly engages us into learning topics of like mind, of things that are related, the more holistic we can take our points of view, our paradigms, if you will. And the more we can go and see how everything is interconnected. Another perfect example, even if we weren't 99.9% the same, even if we weren't part of the same human family, the same race, and all those statements are absolutely true, we are, but even if we weren't, with the transportation and the technology, the world is interconnected whether or not people are related. So they are, and even if they weren't, they'd be connected anyway because the world's gotten so much smaller, especially since the Industrial Revolution. It's important to consider that. And the more we understand and know, not only of the news, but various disciplines, the arts and sciences, the better we'll be able to understand what's really going on in the world, how we invest our time and attention and what we invest our time and attention into, and also just to help us understand more about possibilities and opportunities and help us to understand who we are and how we can go and be a better exemplar and how to be a better human being in general. Somewhere along the lines, we've lost touch with these simple self-development techniques and motivations. We end up getting into a life where we just kind of go on autopilot sometimes. We get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we go to the bathroom, take our showers, dress. A lot of these things were just done through rote. We don't even think about it. The same is true of some people's work life. or their family lives. We don't dedicate, and we're not living in the present moment so many times because we're not really thinking about what we're doing. It's certainly easier to not think and go into an autopilot mode, but we're missing out on so many opportunities for growth, for satisfaction, for quality of life by doing things like this. Now, again, there is an issue with time management, and that's going to be one of the topics that I discuss. But the more we can live in the moment, the more we can savor our surroundings, our situation, our experiences, and other people, the happier we're going to be with ourselves and what life means to us. And that can be different for each of us. We all have different goals, we all have different agendas, we all have different wishes, but we are all basically the same. We're 99.9% the same. We all have the same needs, we all have the same desires. Most of us have the same wants. And it's important to consider that. So, without further ado, let's talk about the important steps necessary to live that Renaissance and Polymath lifestyle. Probably the most important step, again, these aren't in any necessarily particular order, but probably the most important thing is to be kind to ourselves. And one of the most important things to do in that is get enough sleep. Most people probably live on autopilot because they're not really cognizant. They're not really there all the way because they're not getting enough sleep. Sleep is important to help relax. It clears the mind. And it's, physiologically speaking, important to help fuel our body's restoration. Our body needs that downtime to sleep to help heal itself. If we don't get enough, we're not at our best. We don't have the same cognitive faculty that we would otherwise. We end up getting sicker. Our inflammation rates can go up. Our ability to deal and manage with stress and anxiety and depression and a whole slew of other issues decreases because we're not getting enough sleep. We need that. Most life on Earth goes through some sleep phase. Keep that in mind and make sure that you go and give yourself enough time to sleep. So if our bodies need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, which is what the average is according to science, we have to make sure that we give ourselves at least that much of time in bed or wherever you end up sleeping to be able to get that amount of time. But we should also give ourselves a little bit of fudge room because we don't fall asleep immediately when we hit the sack. Some people do, and one of the best ways to fall asleep quicker is to let your mind wander and just daydream as if we were actually already asleep. The best way to fall asleep is to get in that mode that we're actually already sleeping. I know that sounds counterintuitive. Try it out and tell me if it works for you in the comments below. So sleep is very important. The next thing to do to be kind to ourselves is getting in the right frame of mind. So how do you do that? How do you get into that right frame of mind? Well, part of that, in addition to the sleeping, again, is to go and practice mindfulness and meditation and being present. Again, not going through that autopilot mode. You have to be there to get the most out of life or to get the most out of any experience or situation. So, look around you. See what is around your circumstances. Listen actively, think about what's happening, and think about your reactions to what's happening. Kind of looking at life as a bystander or watching your own television show. So you're there as the actor or the participant, but you're also there thinking about what you as the actor or participant are actually doing, as well as what else is going around you or the people around you, how they're acting or what their motivations are or understanding where they're coming from. This is all important. So active listening is essential to be able to be present in a situation, but you also have to listen to yourself. That's why we look at ourselves as the actor participant from a different angle. So we're basically two people at once. Let me know if you understand that or if you need a separate video on that particular topic. So things like mindfulness, things like being present, things like meditation, even if that's a deep breathing exercise for a couple of minutes, it really helps us center and rebalance. And in doing so, we can focus on what comes next. So let's just take a minute into a quick breathing exercise. Optimally, the best position to do it is standing. You're going to get more oxygen and air into your lungs, but you can do it in any position. So the best position might be something else for you at any given point in time. So just close your eyes if you're able to for a second. Breathe through your nose for the count of 5. Hold it for count of 5, and then release through your mouth, again for count of 5. And when you breathe in, try to get all of that oxygen, all of that air down through your diaphragm and feel it going through you into your stomach. Try not to raise your shoulders as you do, because if you do, you're not getting it properly and pushing it down into your stomach. So let's just do that once to reset. So I'm closing my eyes. I'm going to breathe through my nose, hold it for 5 seconds, and exhale for 5 seconds, getting all that air into my stomach, and then expelling it all out from my stomach, out my mouth. Okay, so are you more present? Are you more relaxed? Relaxation is also one of the things we have to do to be kind to ourselves. It's hard for us in modern society, especially in America, to find that balance between work and life. To find that balance between the things we want to do and the things that we need to do, and all the bureaucratic headaches that we have to put up with. We all have some obligations, and we don't always want to do them. But it's more important for us to find that time, or to make that time, to be able to relax. For me, the easiest thing to do is get done what I need to get done first, and then I can relax. I give myself a certain amount of time every day to go and do the chores and the errands that I need to do, as well as when I have to work, as well as what I have to do for my video channel, to be able to expand, to be able to grow for more viewers, to be able to assist more people. But once I'm done, I'm done. I can relax. It's a goal that I set for myself every day, and it makes life easier. I look forward to getting to that point, knowing that I'm done for the day. You probably heard people say things like, when I'm done working and sitting on the couch watching TV, I am done. And that's great if you've got everything done you need to. I don't want to put myself into a position where I end up procrastinating and putting things off, sometimes missing personal or professional deadlines. And I can't really relax knowing that I have to go and do this and do that. Now, certainly there are things that I know that are uncomfortable, that I have to face, that I can't necessarily face now because something is still up in the air, or there's some questions or logistics or whatever. I'm not talking about that. When you can go and do those things, do them, and then you can relax. But don't stress about things in the future that you don't currently have any control over. And also don't stress about things that have happened in the past that you can't control or that you can't change the outcomes or circumstance. I mean, we all have regrets. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, we can't put too much on it other than use it as a learning experience and move on. Once it's happened, it's done. All we can do is learn from it so it doesn't happen again. Moving to be kinder to ourselves and more opening ourselves up to the world, which will, once you master these things, help you be kinder to yourself. But we have to remember that it's important for us to look outside of our own mind. And the next lesson is to go and stay and be curious. Be inquisitive. If you see something interesting or hear something that someone tells you or you read something, go and do some research. Ask some questions. Watch some videos on a particular topic. Things that might not necessarily have been important to you before might all of a sudden become something that keeps your interest, that you find fascinating. And it's those nuggets of truth and curiosity that really make life worth living. Whether that's getting a hug unexpectedly from a friend or family member, or learning a new language. Being engaged in something, opening ourselves up to those new experiences, and learning a myriad of subjects really helps us to become a well-rounded person. And that is necessary to be a polymath and a Renaissance spirit. With that, there's another component that's important. And I'm not sure if I'm going to express this properly to be able to put it into words, but we have to understand how things work. We have to be inquisitive and curious enough to not accept things at face value. Probably the easiest example to give is a child asking, "Why is the sky blue?" If you've never thought that question, or worse, not ever looked to see what the answer is, you're not being curious. You're not opening yourself up to the wider world. You're handicapping yourself on something that's majestic, that's filled with awe, that could make your life so much richer, so much more satisfying. We all need to ask questions, and we all have to understand and discover for ourselves how things work, why they work, why it's important, how it fits in with our lives or the lives of others or society or culture. The more questions we ask, the more our mind starts racing, and it's as exciting as opening up presents at Christmas, if you're Gentile, or opening up presents at Hanukkah if you're Jewish, or you get the idea. We have to be able to be excited, we have to be able to ask questions, and we have to be curious. And the more we ask questions as to how things work, the more we can start this journey together. And to answer the question as to why the sky is blue, it's because light carries different wavelengths, and certain light is more visible when it's scattered, and that's what happens with blue light. But you already knew that answer, didn't you? This next one is going to be difficult for some of us. I'm an introvert, and I like planning. I would never go to a grocery store without having a grocery list because I end up just having to go and make more trips. I know that because I end up forgetting to add things to my grocery list sometimes. But it's important for people to not only plan when warranted, but willing to be spontaneous. We open ourselves up to so much more of life when we add spontaneity. Now, it has to be spontaneity that we can live with under the circumstances, time constraints, resources, etc. But generally speaking, we all have to be willing and able to be spontaneous. Your choice. Your choice as to what you're spontaneous about. So there's always a little bit of planning when it comes to spontaneity, but you understand what I'm saying. The other thing that's important with spontaneity is opening ourselves up to new opportunities. Certain opportunities in life only present themselves once. If an opportunity is something that is important to you, or is part of your life mission or your life goals, then you have to be willing to take it when the opportunity arises. It's those things in life that are really experiences. You hear that catchword all the time, experiences and experiential, and it's such a buzzword and so ubiquitous in society today. But are we really going and experiencing something new when we end up driving a new car or going to a different restaurant? Not unless we're cooking the meal ourselves or learning about car manufacturing, probably not. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, we're not really getting anything new from that experience, or very little in comparison to spontaneously accepting opportunities when they present themselves. So being spontaneous is great. It's important to being a well-rounded person, as well as planning. And I'll talk about planning in a second. But it's also important to take opportunities when they are presented, because you might not be able to ever do that again. And yes, back to the whole balancing act, is it, again, something that you can afford to do either time or resource-wise? Your opportunities you might be presented with several choices. So determining what is important to you at that point is something that involves planning. So getting on to the next item, we have to be able to manage our time and we have to plan. There are things in life that can only be dealt with at the spur of the moment, in spontaneity. But the more we can plan for things, for eventualities that are likely to come to pass, the better off we're going to be. So I'll give you an example of something I did spontaneously, which I regret doing because I missed out on an opportunity because of it. My disabled mother, who just passed away on the 18th of November, wanted to move down to North Carolina from Pennsylvania as I was graduating from college, university. I wanted to be there for her because of her disability and because she didn't really have any friends down in North Carolina, and she did have some family. We have family. But it was something that I wasn't comfortable with her moving down on her own. So in that respect, it was good that I did it. But because of it, I had to go and completely change career goals, and it really put me back a few years. What I could have done I went and applied for an unpaid externship with the State Department. I could have worked at the Bureau for European and Canadian Affairs in London, but instead I ended up moving down to North Carolina. I also was planning to go to grad school for political science, and I was also offered an opportunity to work at a state representative's office in Pennsylvania. So I had a few different choices at that point after having graduated with my bachelor's degree. From a career standpoint, I really should have probably went to London. It would have looked great on my resume. It would have put me in a completely different career path and a completely different career trajectory than where I landed. It's one of those things in life where I know that I was doing what I needed to do for my mom, but a part of me will always regret not taking that opportunity. The other issue was that the security clearance to accept the externship didn't come until after I'd already moved down there. And I spent what savings I had moving. And because it took me a while to find a new job, because in political science, you really can't get a job in the field without having some kind of connections or a plan. So when I moved down to North Carolina, I found myself in that situation where I didn't know what I was going to do next. The first place that I applied was at the AFL-CIO to be a labor organizer. Of course, I've never been in a union because I was just graduating from college, so it wasn't really a good career path for me. I ended up doing a lot of really weird, odd jobs just to make ends meet. Probably the strangest place I used to work at was at the airport at Raleigh-Durham International, bringing planes in. In addition to that, I would clean out cabins, and at one point I had the unfortunate luck of being assigned to empty out the waste from the toilet in the plane. So I connected the valve, but it didn't stick properly, and I ended up getting tons of blue water all over me. Story for another video. But it's important to have plans, and it's important to follow through if it's something that's important to you. So yes, in one sense it was great that I ended up helping my mom, but it would have been probably just as advantageous to her and to myself and to my family in general had I just went and talked to her about the pros and cons of moving, what it meant for her, what it meant for me. My sister eventually moved down a year later, so it really disrupted all of our lives. I'm not sure if it was the best decision for us at that point. Had I expressed that, had I understood that myself, and then expressed it to my mom, we might be in totally different places right now. The next step to becoming a polymath and embracing the Renaissance spirit is knowing yourself. Knowing what your passions are, knowing what your needs are, knowing what your wants are, and knowing the difference between the two. And again, all this is related and connected. You have to be mindful, and you have to be present, and you have to be willing to live a life that will bring you some meaning and some happiness. Too many of us just spend our lives on autopilot, not thinking about what we're doing or why we do it. The more we can manage, not necessarily what happens to us in life, but at least manage our choices and understand our consequences, similar to me not going to London for the externship. These things are important, and the more we understand who we are and what's important to us, the more we can act on it. I have a whole video on the idea of being your authentic self. I'll link that at the end of the video. The next key is to promoting a life of simplicity. Simple living isn't necessarily so simple when you look at the nuts and bolts. Because to live a simple life, you have to make decisions and understand outcomes and opportunities. The biggest detriments to simple living are time management, health, and resource allocation. When it comes to health, that's easy enough for us to understand. We don't want to be sick. We don't want to develop conditions or illnesses that are going to negatively impact our well-being and our quality of life. So that means getting enough sleep, getting enough hydration, exercising, not eating to excess. At least one of those I have an issue with. I've been through most of my life either extremely svelte and thin, or overweight, or currently obese. That was my biggest reason to start this channel, was because I wanted to change myself, and I knew that I needed the correct motivations and I needed a way to measure my progress. The channel does that, and it helps hopefully you as a user, as a viewer, to realize that we're all basically in the same boat, whether you're overweight or not, whether you have this issue or something that you want to change about yourself. There are always things that we could do to grow and to become a better you, better me. It's important for us to come to that realization. And one of the things that's important with simple living is realizing that things like our health, things like resources and resource allocation, and things like time are finite. Life is too short. And for us to be able to go and make those decisions and plan and organize and understand ramifications and understand consequences of our actions, we need to be in that mindset. We need to be present. We have to be willing to understand a lot of our journey is choices that we make. Certainly, we aren't all built with the same opportunities. We certainly aren't built with the same gifts. We're 99.9% the same, but we each have our opportunities and our strengths and our weaknesses, and we have to be cognizant of that. So understanding ourselves, like I discussed a second ago with authentic selves, will help us to get to the journey, but we have to be willing to take the next steps. And simple living, just basically in a nutshell, is the idea that we are cognizant of what is important to us and what's important to the people that we love and to our community, and we get rid of everything else. So for us to understand that, we have to be willing to make the choices. We have to understand the repercussions. We have to plan and prepare, and even being spontaneous. You have to be willing to make those decisions, and you have to understand what you're giving up. You might have an opportunity that only presents itself once, as I mentioned earlier, but being cognizant of all that is part of what simple living is. So you use your brain quite a bit living a simple lifestyle, unless you don't have those dreams, or you don't have the wherewithal to be able to make those kinds of decisions, or the opportunities to do so. And certainly not all of us are as blessed as others when it comes to things like affordable housing, or money in the bank. But if we never make those plans, we'll never reach those goals. And that's a perfect segue to my last point in this video. There's certainly more that I'm not going to cover on this particular video. This one's getting pretty long as it is. Thank you for sticking with me this long. It's important for all of us to realize the finite nature of our existence, at least here on Earth. Since we only can do so many things in life, we only have a certain amount of time. Doing something like creating a bucket list is a great idea. Again, if we never dream about something, how are we ever going to be able to reach it? Dreaming is only part of the process on the journey of being a Renaissance spirit, but it's an initial first step. And to go back to a point, I forgot to mention what I meant by resource allocation. As an example, cobalt is necessary in the creation of batteries for electric vehicles. Once we deplete our resources, we won't be able to go and create batteries without using some other resources. Creating something like a bucket list helps us invigorate our senses. It helps us to be creative and to think outside the box. I hate that saying, but creativity, curiosity are essential. And again, I'm tying back what I said previously. And planning is necessary to be able to bring all of that to reality. And you can see, based off of these conversations, how all these things are related. Time management is essential to planning. Planning is essential to living the Polymath lifestyle. We can't be it unless we dream it. And to be able to dream it, we have to understand who we are, what our intentions are, what our motivations are, the consequences of our actions. Even if that just means losing another opportunity because we've accepted this one. All of this is related, and this is what it means to be a polymath. I am going to do separate videos on each of these topics in more depth. I hope you enjoyed this video. And just to wrap things up, there are multiple steps to make us a better person, to make us happier in life. And these are just the basics. If we can't reach these steps, we're not going to be able to ascend to an enlightenment or ascend to the Renaissance spirit. Understanding all of these things in tandem is essential to living our true authentic selves and the best you can be, which was the title of my channel prior to Renaissance Spirit. It was called How to Be a Scot. And the idea was that I wanted to be the best Scot I could be. So I hope I've given you some food for thought. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. And please watch Americans Don't Like to Talk About Money and my video on being your true authentic self. Take care, and thank you very much for watching.